we have our second to last round here in Road America, and we have skipped the qualifying because I am alone on the comms. This is Kacper Kolodziejczyk, and on cams, and as a commentator just for the warm-up with me will be Ben Willis.
Hello everybody at home. Yeah, another great race we've got ahead of us, second to last of the season, and Road America will be a really good test of these things. It's a very long track, it's got some really nasty corners on it, but also some very fast sections.
Yes, it is a very, very quick track in general, to be honest. There are very quick corners. There's a lot of 90-degree corners, but they're designed in such a way and they're so wide that they're actually extraordinarily quick. And of course, we have such, really famous corners like the Carousel and, well, the Kink, kind of, right afterwards. They can be scary in some cars, but I don't think they're too bad in this. But even with that, the track is just so long. It's over like 6 kilometers or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's a really long track. We've only actually got 25 laps tonight because it's so long. It's a track where you've got to keep your concentration around the whole lap. Your tyres will start going. We've seen in quali where people were only doing sort of 1 or 2 lap runs because their tyres were dying by the end of it. Like they were just pushing so hard. So it's really all about managing those tyres across the stint distance, and also Road America being so long. There's, as you say, a lot of 90-degree corners, but there's some really weird things like with the elevation that make them really tricky. We've got some quite uphill corners and bits like that, so definitely a lot to keep the drivers' wits about them tonight.
Yes, and it's not even that we have a lot of camber for corners. A lot of the corners are actually very flat, but in terms of the lateral motion, but just going up and down in a kind of. It just seems like it's one of those tracks where that actually changes a lot on how the cars handle those corners, which, yeah, it should be very good. And something that we also were discussing right before is of course, this is a standing start. So some of the cars in the back of the grid will have to start up a hill, which is very interesting, and we really hope that they won't be rolling backwards.
Definitely, yeah. It's a really steep front straight here. I don't know if everybody's I watch a lot of the imps and stuff. So as I've seen some of the endurance races through there, where they've got the rolling start, so it's a lot easier to get off the line at the start of the race. But standing starts are going to be really tough with these things. You know, it's almost sort of like a sort of 20-30 degree incline at the start. So really steep. The driver's got to be really careful on that launch. You don't want to bog down too much, or even roll back a bit. So it's going to be a really interesting run into turn 1, and definitely a lot to lose.
Yes, there will be a lot to lose and a lot to gain as well with that fashion. And something about gains. So I will go over exactly the starting order later on, but the big news is Wopke Hoekstra has taken the pole by 0.4 of a second, over 0.4 of a second. And we have seen at Mosport and back at Indianapolis how incredible his starts are. So I don't think if he gets such a start that anyone can really challenge him.
Definitely, yeah. Whoop has got that car really hooked up nicely. You know, he was a good 3-4 tenths clear, I think, in quali. He was an absolute stormer of a lap, and as we saw back at Mosport, he had a great start from the second row. You know, to jump up into near the lead. So I think if you can get that start right, he can easily pull away from second and third, and be a good car, 2 cars length clear into turn 1.
Yeah, I would really kind of nearly be expecting that to happen. Again, he can come back from as far as 5th and still be in the lead by turn 1 with an EU, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was way in front. As we see, and I'm actually seeing, that he's actually trying his starts again, so he really wants to dial that.
He's getting him some early practice, isn't he? He's definitely knows his game plan going into this.
Yes, and I think he's very confident about what he can do, especially at the start. So I think that number 15 car, the very blue car, because there's no really other way to describe it, is going to be quite comfortable.
For sure, definitely. If you can get that start right, he's definitely got the pace to lead it from the front. Strategy should be interesting tonight, with how much the track is actually killing the tyres. It's going to be We say it every week with strategy. We don't really know what they're going to do with the tyres. Also, you've got 2 compounds in this. You have the alternate red tyres, the softer compound, and you have your primary blacks, your hard tyres. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with strategy. I can't say I'm too clued up with what they're going to do, but if they've been suffering with a lot of tyre heat in qualifying, then I can see them using sort of the harder tyre a bit more.
I would say that would have been true in some fashion at Mosport, but here I'm seeing that none of the drivers are even attempting to drive on the harder compound in their warm-up laps. So I think at the moment we're seeing that, well, actually, except Christoph Liechtenstein, but he's really, to be honest, he's not really counting in any kind of battling. So I really don't expect anyone to be driving on anything but option tires, except for very back-end drivers. And I really do wonder, with the tire usage, how long they can last, and if they can actually make an entire stint. Because it's quite obvious that they can make it on fuel on just one stop. But the tires is always going to be that one big question mark. And I think that's going to be very good to see. And I would assume that they will be able to handle half a race, but you never know.
I suppose you'd hope so from a strategy point of view. Obviously, you're aiming only to make one stop. But when you've got corners like the carousel, there's such a long sweeping right-hander. You're working the left-hand tires for a good 3-4 seconds through there. And that's why they're sort of suffering so much with tyre degradation around here. There's a lot of long, sweeping corners, as well as sort of your 90 left, your 90 rights. But there's enough there to really put a lot of heat into the tyres and to damage them a little bit. So hopefully they can make it on one stop. We saw a few people try 2-stop at Mosport and it didn't really pay off. So I think ideally you want to go for that one stop.
Yes, and I mean the problem is these cars just don't lose the pace nearly as quickly as they would need to for a 2-stop to work, really. So yeah, there's really one real option for the drivers, and I think to be fair, and luckily that's a bit of a downside, but it also does mean that it's a bit more fair on the drivers. But then it doesn't play a part in terms of how well does a driver actually treats the tires in a way. So there are always trade-offs, and in terms of anything really happening to any cars and any mods, etc., etc., etc.
Exactly. Yeah. Strategy in itself is all about the trade-offs. You can build a setup of a car for pure speed, but with that you sort of inherit the possibility of there being completely destroying the tyres after a few laps. Or you can go the other way, go quite conservative, stretch out those tyres. You'll easily make your pit stop, but you're going to lose that speed. So there's a lot of skill in just trying to get that car set up just right so you get the optimum strategy. It's a race at the end of the day. You want to finish in the shortest amount of time possible. So if you can get that strategy hooked up nice and right, you're gonna do well.
I'm seeing something interesting in a conversation coming out here, because there is no mandatory pit stop in the series, and apparently some drivers can actually make it without a stop.
That would surely have to be on the harder tyre to do that.
No, apparently, seemingly not, since they're all practicing on the option. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you this much, that I also was looking at different drivers, obviously, for qualifying and paying attention, and especially to Wopke Hoekstra, considering he was really doing so well. And he did do 2 laps on his tires, and second one was an improvement, so I would have assumed that he's actually treating his tires really well.
Yeah, definitely. If he can eke out more pace on the second lap, then that's a good sign he's not burning through him on the first one, and I'd say that naturally leads to a good sign on tyre conservation, really.
Yes, I would very much assume that. Also, I'm just seeing a bit of a mess when drivers are attempting to have a bit of a start attempts in their session, but I'm seeing a lot of them just tripping over one another, and it's a bit of a funny situation. So I'm just a bit chuckling to myself, to be honest. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating, and I think if they can make it on without a stop, is that going to be quicker than making one stop? No, that's, in a way, you would assume so. But then, if they can't do it on tires, or it could be very, very interesting, as we have our drivers being set up now, and I think we're about half a minute to a minute before we start to grid up. And some drivers questioning the the fuel consumption because I think Wopke Hostra is saying that he has to pit in. So that'll be very, very interesting to see how it pans out. Anyway, and I think now we're about to lose Ben Willis from our commentary booth, and luckily.
You are indeed. I'm going to go and focus on the cameras and hopefully watch a great race.
Well, thank you for doing that job, which is absolutely necessary, and hopefully we're going to have a great broadcast. And yes, I think the drivers are now really getting confused about how much fuel they can put into these cars. But with that said, we have our last few drivers on their laps, or in the grass, some of them, as far as I'm seeing. At least 2. But yes, we're just about to go into the race, and it'll be very, very fascinating, as we were talking about. And the strategy, I'd say it is just one stop for everyone. Regarding the kind of speeds, I'd be assuming that our pole sitter is going to absolutely run away with it for at least the first couple laps. So this is going to be just absolutely fascinating, and then following that, we don't know what will happen. Who knows, maybe in the pit stops everything will change. As we get our final notes about taking it easy during the race. Or not taking it easy, but taking it safe is probably the most accurate description of what's happening. And of course, last race was extremely exciting. I'm just very much hoping for a race similar to that in terms of the absolute tension. As the R Factor Man does indeed tell us that we're about to grid up. That said, the top 2 drivers at the moment will be from the same team. So they can play some team games with Dina Paolini, but I'd say, or at least I think they're the same team. Yes, they are, measuring. So this is going to be very interesting. And we're about to go on our formation lap, and here we go. So from first is going to be Wopke Hostra is going to be taking us throughout this race, and we'll see how that goes. And he's actually on the harder compound of tires. That may be a bit of a bug. With Dina Paolini starting from 2nd place, with Roy Schroten in 3rd place. Very well done for Drake. Menaclant in 4th, really good lap as well, taking that Feeder Sport Poland car into the 4th. 5th for Borja Milan, and 6th for Michele D'Alessandro, who's a bit lower down than usually, from what I recall. Thomas Sins doing quite alright in 7th place. Drag Racing really quite happy with their positioning in the qualifying. Jordan Weeks are not so race winner from 2 weeks ago in 8th place. 9th place for Garrett De Vries, and 10th for Nir Kumar. He'll be hoping for a bit of a better race than last time. Lazarus Pekos, the same could be said about him in 11th place with for our only controller man. 12th for Andrei Borotovsky, I think is the name is how you pronounce it. It is even difficult for me. But Daniel Benefield in 13th place, with Christoph Lichtenstein in 14th. Mark Wicks for 15th, and that's never gonna get difficult to differentiate between Weeks and Wicks. With 16th for Shane Vardsloot, a bit disappointing for Sharon, and 17th for Shane Burke, even more so. The 2 Duct Tape Racing just not quite there on pace. Alexander van der Woude, after that Charlotte race, not doing very well around here. Unluckily 18th place for him, 19th for Andrea Magoso, with 20th for Mateusz Bogus. Also, Simtek just not having good day. Edgar Ruiz in 21st, with David Junt in 22nd. Also, I don't think he ran any qualifying laps. He didn't feel too comfortable enough. With Miles Dixon in 23rd, with 24th for Nicholas Hillebrand, who's our first of the back of the grid penalty drivers, with our final starting driver of Reese Gardner in 25th, also with the back of the grid. That said, yes, it was a bug. Everyone is starting on the softer compound, thankfully, because that seemed like a very weird choice. So literally the entire grid is on the same compound, and it'll be very, very interesting if they can how they can manage it throughout this race. As we have Wopke Hostra just about to align himself on the first slot, and he is just making sure that he has enough heat in his rear tires. And there you go. Slotting in. I really wonder if he can get the same start as he has over the last 2 of the road race rounds. That could be potentially very interesting. And one of our first... how many drivers will we actually have on that hill? And I think there is not going to be anyone on the very steep hill. There's going to be a little bit of a hill for Reese Gardner, Nico Hillebrand, and the likes. But we have lights coming on, as we have all lights red, and we go off. And what a poor start from Dino Paolini from 2nd place. Now Roy Schoten 2nd with Menno Klont right on the backhand of his. With Borham Land on the outside, possibly taking it into turn 1. No, he touches Schroten, but then we have contact and we have a spinner. Lazarus Filipekos is actually spun. I'm not sure if that's after contact, but one more car in the wall. I think that is Alexander van der Woude. No, Nicholas Hillebrand after a contact with a spinning Lazarus Filipekos, I think, and Nicholas Hillebrand retires. With that said, we have a lot of cars going side by side a little bit further down the grid with Gert de Vries attacking Jordan Weeks possibly for 9th place. But he's under pressure from Borotowski, who's also under pressure from Sharon van der Sloot, who's actually had a fantastic start. But now he's under pressure from David Jund, who's, wow, that's an amazing start up to into 12th. And now De Vries just spawned in front of them. So that is David Jund up to 11th place from starting, I think, 22nd. That's amazing starting from the Swiss driver, of course. And in front of them, we have I think we had someone pushing off another driver slightly, but I'm not entirely sure. I've just seen the glimpse of it. And wow, so much happening over the opening laps. And I think there's another driver who's going to be under pressure in a second, and that's for one of the high places, actually, high spots. And that's going to be 3rd place man of Menno Klont being under pressure from Borja Milan, and could be very interesting. And yes, I'm seeing that someone is not very happy with Liechtenstein at the moment. And that would be on the retirement currently. But yes, we have Borja Milan attempting a move on the start-finish straight. And on the inside, before the corner even begins, this is of course such a long straight, so he can just put that draft to use, and does indeed do it very securely. Before the corner even begins, he was already in front of Menno Klont and already had it secure. With that said, Menno Klont is not going to give up. I wouldn't have fought, so I would still watch that battle. And with that said, the difference across the line between the two was 9 thousandths of a second. But Wopke Hoekstra is just taking it away, and unless Roy Schoten can pull something out of the bag, there's no way he's going to be catching up. And with that said, there's quite a bit of battling, I think, for 5th place between Benefield and Paolini, and right behind between Hinz and D'Alessandro. Actually, D'Alessandro is attempting to make a move on Thomas Hinz, but no, he doesn't decide to do it just before the carousel. That would be a very dangerous move. Even if so, the undulations there are actually quite difficult to manage, as he just tries to follow Hinz through the carousel, and he goes a bit wide, and he spins, and he goes into the wall, and that's D'Alessandro having a race go from bad to worse. That's D'Alessandro with a necessary pit at the very best, retirement at the worst, and the worst comes to fruition, or well, not fruition, but the worst comes out unluckily as the outcome of this incident, and that's D'Alessandro under his own mistake and purely and clearly and luckily retires out of this race. And now what I'm seeing is that Dino Paolini is closing up on Daniel Benefield for 5th place and possibly making a move into first corner, but I don't think he's going to quite be able to do it. But he is definitely putting the pressure on the Australian at this very moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was attempting a move after his absolutely fantastic qualifying session, where he was 2nd on the grid, and then absolutely horrible start. But with that said, a driver that I have been talking before the race had begun, and who didn't feel very comfortable with the car or his setup with anything really, David Jones is up into 9th place, just avoiding all of the incidents. That's absolutely some amazing stuff from David, of course. And the battle, I'm just looking, and the difference between Daniel Benefield and Dino Paolini is still 0.2 of a second. I'm sorry about jumping so much, but it is the beginning of the race, and it is so much happening. here with... I'm just now seeing that apparently there was a pass, I think, not too long ago. Oh, there's a battle for P12, apparently. And... oh, the Weeks just fell down to 12th place. As right in front of him, Sharon van der Sloot just barely saves the car in the same place that Alessandro crashed it, and now is under pressure from Jordan Weeks on the inside of the corner after the braking, after the kink, and whoa, that was done before the corner even begun. But now Niranyar Kumar is going to pressure van der Sloot after such a good race start for van der Sloot again as well. He's under pressure for his 11th place. And at the moment, I'm seeing that the top two are kind of fluctuating in their time differences in laps, so that's not something to really watch out for. So, but that's just a little update. And I think we're starting to slightly calm down finally. Although, to be fair, that Dino Paolini Daniel Benefield battle is still raging on, and there is going to be a move right now on the inside. Can Dino Paolini actually stop it before Daniel Benefield can? And can Benefield just close the door? Yes, he can, just barely. Dino Paolini giving him enough room for that. And we have apparently Thomas Hinds right behind Paolini, who's also just waiting to take that opportunity on a move if Dino Paolini makes a mistake, as he now has. And he's just going to be attempting a move whenever he gets any kind of a chance to attack. Or Dino Paolini makes any mistakes, of course. And it seems like it's going to be difficult to overtake no matter what, unless you have a massive advantage on a straight. So definitely, Thomas is going to be just waiting for Dino to make a move and to make a mistake, or Daniel just defending a bit harder than Dino anticipates, and of course that's all a tactical movement. But that said, Dino just doesn't seem to quite... well, I say that, but I think he's just about able to hold on to the gap between himself and Benefield for a start-finish straight, but he always seems to just have that gap slightly extend in the final few corners and just not quite able to close down enough to make a move into the first corner. So that's why he has to make different very interesting moves into the final, in the middle sectors, outside of the very long straights. But Thomas Hinds is now slightly dropping down from what I'm saying, over a second behind Dino. But Dino is again going to possibly try a move on Daniel Benefield, again the same place as last time, and who knows, he could possibly have a bit of a better run, because he does have a longer straight to really get himself up to speed, but no, he decides against it and just decides to keep very close behind Benefield. And with that said, Benefield just kind of going a little bit wide into that corner, but still keeping the distance, still keeping the gap. Dino Paolini just not quite able to keep behind him in such proximity to actually attack. And I think it's going to be another story of the exact same problem that he has had for the last 2 or 3 laps, just not quite able to do it. And it's an interesting battle again, and these cars are very aero dependent, and that is exactly why it's so very difficult to follow in our car, but it's also why we have so much of an aero effect. Kind of, it nearly seems like a DRS in a car like this, just because you're driving behind someone. As Benefield makes a bit of a mistake through the final few corners of this complex, and I think he's going to be way closer this time around. Oh, as Dino Paolini makes a mistake, just not quite used to this amount of aero push, and again loses just enough of track distance and enough of time for Daniel to really have it safe through the start-finish line. And that's really the only place I can see him overtake at this very moment. And at that point, it just doesn't look likely for him to be able to overtake anytime soon. Unless, again, Benefield makes a mistake through the last complex and Dino Paolini doesn't make a mistake. And again, I'd like to really say David Junta's doing really well. 8th place now. He's right behind this battle. Well, right behind would be a bit of an exaggeration. He's 4 seconds behind Thomas Hinds, but still very well done from the Swiss. And apparently I have missed at least 1 crash earlier on in the second lap, since Miles Dixon has retired as well with suspension damage. So that is another driver down on our grid, and which was actually an entire of 25 people. As I hear some damaged car parts, I see Weeks. Oh, Van der Sloot is spun, and apparently Van der Velde has actually had. Well, I don't see any damage on his car at the moment. But what happened to him? Oh, he just spun. See, he just simply spun, and then, oh, he got collected by Liechtenstein. So that's what happened. Oh dear, oh dear. It seems like Van der Velde doesn't have too much of visible damage, but Liechtenstein, of course, does. He doesn't have the front wing, which means that he does have to pit in once again, so... And there's a battle for P5 raging on again. This time around, Paolini does indeed attempt a move on the inside of turn 1. I think he's going to have it done before the turn even begins. Yes, he does, but now Benefield is right behind Dino. He's going to be attempting to make a move exactly in the same vein as Dino tried on him a couple laps ago. But I'm not sure if he can do it at this point, because Dino Paolini does seem to be quite a bit quicker. But he will still attempt it, but I think he's a bit too far at this point. Just not quite enough top speed at this rate, but he is still keeping right behind. So we'll see about that. But now Thomas Hinz is going to see that little battle and is going to hopefully see it as an opportunity for himself to possibly attack for 6th place. And apparently we have had a bit of a worse lap from Wopke Hoekstra, which lost him about 0.8 of a second last time around, so that gap is only down to about a second as well, so that could go either way very, very quickly. And from what I was saying, one of the more disappointing drives so far is Jordan Weeks after such an amazing drive at Mosport. And apparently we have a spin of Gerrit de Vries in currently 15. He was in P14. So that's Gerrit de Vries spinning out and losing quite... Oh, Alexander van der Velde and Magoso just make it through. And Alexander van der Velde goes into P15 and Manjar Magoso into P16. Gerrit de Vries will have to get up to his pace and get it up and running. It appears like Dino Paolini is just about running away at this point from Daniel Benefield, and it's nearly a second gap now. And it's basically the same gap between Dino Paolini as it is and Daniel Benefield as it is between Benefield and Hinz. So I think that's pretty settled at this point. Let's see, there's a little bit of a battle for P12, if I could say that. Edgar Reef is right behind Sharon van der Sloot, and he is going to be attempting a possible move for P12 into turn 1, but I think he's a little bit too far again. But who knows, this could be a bit of a lunge, but no, he thinks better of it, and he is a bit more smart about it than some would. I think I heard some parts flying. Yes, Christoph Liechtenstein just retired from the race by hitting a wall. But with that said, back to Edgar Reef and Sharon van der Sloot. That does indeed seem to be just another situation. Just like Paolini and Benefield earlier on, but now Edgar Reef just right behind van der Sloot, and possibly attempting to make a move soon enough, because it is as Bogusz. That's Bogusz right in front of him. That just spins, so that's actually near Kumar also DNF'd. So near Kumar, I'm not sure if that's a straight disconnect or what happened there, but I'm going to quickly check. That's a straight disconnect. That's just a straight disconnect from near Kumar. That's very unlucky for him. And I see van der Sloot just making a mistake, and now Edgar Reef is through. I think Sharon van der Sloot just going wide through the carousel or the kink. I'm not entirely sure which one of them, but he does go wide, and now Edgar Reef is up to 10th place rather than just 12th. So very well done from Edgar, and now he's going up at places. And apparently we have a P6 battle between Hinz and Benefield, the two Australians, battling it out this time around. And I was expecting that, and I was looking at the gaps not too long ago, and I was thinking that they are closing down a little bit. But now Benefield under a defensive from Hinz, and Hinz just taking it on the inside, and is he going to be able to stop it before Benefield? Not quite. He was side by side with Benefield, but Benefield just slightly better at judging where he had to brake, and he did have the rubbered in braking line, which meant that he could be a bit more confident on his brakes, and Benefield just taking it through that corner, still in 6th place, but Hinz is still under the attack mode. And Niranyar Kumar has indeed come back, and he is currently in 19th place, and if everything goes well, he will be back onto the track. Yes, he is coming back onto the track, and he will be losing a little bit, well, quite a bit, but he still will score points if he can finish within, I think 90% of the distance it is. And with that said, what am I seeing here? Jordan Weeks is in 9th place because of Kumar, I think that would be. Edgar Weef actually lost the place to Lazarus Filipakos. Oh, that's interesting. And Sharon van der Sloot is also in front, so Edgar Weef must have made quite a bit of a mistake, since he has lost quite a few places, and now he's actually closer to Alexander van der Velde right behind him than he is to Lazarus Filipakos nearly. And with that said, I think we're starting to run out of battles, although Benefield's still under pressure from Hinz. And I think that's going to go on for quite a while, to be perfectly honest, because those two are, neither of them is going to give up at this rate. And Edgar Weef, oh, that's Sharon van der Sloot spinning as well, and I think that, and Edgar Weef is very slow in going to the pits? Okay, this is a bit of a mess. Apparently Sharon van der Sloot made a bit of a mistake. Came back on track, and I've seen nothing which went wrong. I had a bit of a glitch with the replay, so I don't really know what happened there. And apparently our broadcast also had a bit of a glitch, so yes, unluckily we can't help you with telling you exactly what happened there. So that's unlucky, but that's Sharon van der Sloot and Edgar Weef both in the pits. With that. That allows Alexander van der Velde, after that bit of a mistake, to go up to 11th place, although he's just making a bit of mistakes here and there now, and he's under pressure from Magoso. But who's also under pressure is still up in 6th place, Daniel Benefield. But now Hinz is right behind his back end, although he can't quite follow. And I think it's just that very last corner that's just so quick that the driver behind cannot quite follow, and cannot quite use the straight as a ramp to nearly get in front, or a ramp, a start, kind of jump start nearly to get in front. But with that said, someone who's going to be under pressure any minute is actually Menno Klant for 4th place. Dino Paolini is lapping about a second quicker, so at this rate, Menno Klant is already having to look into his mirrors to just see what he can do against Dino Paolini, who's going quite a while in fact, and trying to use every inch of the track and a bit more. And there are quite a few drivers actually. Oh, there's a side-by-side battle between Alexander van der Velde and Andrea Magoso, and right behind him, Gerrit de Vries is also attempting to make a move, but he backs out of it now. And Alexander van der Velde trying to make a move on the outside, but he just can't for turn 1, and Magoso is up into 11th place. But now Magoso makes a bit of a mistake, and there is a contact between Alexander van der Velde and Magoso, who's now fighting with De Vries. And wow, okay, that's them going side by side. But with that said, the battle for 4th place is still raging on, with Dino Paolini just trying to close down on Menno Klant as quickly as he can, and attempting to find a way past Menno. This is quite fascinating, and I think that 11th place battle, to be honest, is quite fascinating, even though there's a bit of contact here and there, which is not exactly my favorite type of racing. Not exactly the fan of bump and racing, so or however the Americans call it. Although we are in America, and this is Road America. And a little fun fact for you. Oh, I'll tell you that right after Magoso makes a move on the outside of the very slow corner. Oh, well, even before the corner begins, but outside of the corner, that's the right-hander after the long kink and carousel, first really breaking point. And I think Alexander is just having a bit of an issue, but with his car in general, or something, because his top speed is just not quite there. And now Dino Paolini is Apparently, last time they crossed the timing beam, it was 1/10 of a second. So, excuse me. At this rate, we're going to see quite a bit of battle still, and I think they're pretty much just trying. Basically, they're trying to do their best as they're coming up to traffic. Jeez. That is Shane Burke right in front of Menno Klant and Dino Paolini. And I think he may help Menno just a little bit on the start-finish straight, just to be able to get a bit of that draft, and just be able to fend off Dino just a little bit better, because he did have quite bad of an exit, but now I'm seeing Dino Paolini having a lot better exit out that final corner, and now they may make it 3 wide, but no, he doesn't feel like that's a safe enough option. Now Paolini right on the back end, but now Klant pulling away. By the end, I think Dino just slightly lifting off just to make it safe. But now we have our first of the scheduled pitters, and it is Borja Milan off out of 3rd place, and he's going to be trying a bit of an undercut on all of the drivers in front. We also have a battle in pits. That is also a battle on track, in fact, which is Thomas Sins and Daniel Benefield. And we'll see which one of the Australians can come out of pits first. And oh, that's Benefield on track already. Oh, that's gonna be Benefield way in front. That is Hinz having a horrible pit stop. Very, very long. And I'm not sure if that was because of some damage he forgot to disable the repair of, or if it was just on track. Well, possibly just less fuel being added. As we have Jordan Weeks, who just retired. I'm seeing DNF. I'm not sure if it's damage related. Possibly not with DNF, but you never know. I'm not seeing exactly why it happened, but as we have Magoso in pits, he is now in, and he will be attempting to make a move on Alexander, or he will be attempting to stay in front of Alexander Van der Velde, which I think he just about can. But with that said, Dino Paolini is in front of Menno Klant. Sorry about missing that, but there is too much happening at the moment, and I can't quite pay attention to all of it. As we have our top 2 drivers in pits, that's Wopke Hoekstra and Roy Schroten in pits. They will be fighting it out as well, so possibly, who knows, Schroten could be fighting for that lead position in these pit stops. It very much depends on how well the crew of Hoekstra can actually fuel and change the tires on this car. We also have Menno Klant in pits, so he'll be trying to possibly gain as much as he can. And race of pits road, and Wopke Hoekstra just about has it, but it looks closer to me than last time. It looks like Schroten has gained quite a bit, so that could be very, very fascinating through the second half of this race. That's Schroten right on back end, and he is having a lot better first 3 corners on those gold tires. It seems like Wopke is just not quite confident enough yet. Schroten could be challenging here for a lead and possibly a win. That, I think, Drake Racing would very much like what's happening right here. As we have our cameraman just a bit giggling a little bit to me, considering he is very much. I'm not sure if he's related to the team, but he's very happy. He's very. Oh, he is a team manager. There we go. Yes. So he would be very happy to see that driver come out on top. But Dino Paolini now, of course, has a clean track, and we'll see what he can do. He was down quite a bit, but never count out Dino, really. Although the pace that the top 2 drivers are putting out, I don't think will quite allow Dino to catch up. As he's catching up to traffic, in fact. And we have Alexander Van der Velde in pits now. So something interesting. I think Daniel Benefield is actually gapping Thomas Sins a little bit. Now it's over 5 seconds. That's a lot. And now we have Dino Paolini in pits. So everyone pretty much pitting in on the 50% mark, or thereabouts, plus minus 1 lap. At least all of the leaders. And now we're going to have Wopke Hoekstra and Roy Schroten back into the lead and fighting it out. Dino and Roy, they had very similar pace in the first half of the race. They have been keeping themselves honest. And at this moment, it's only 0.6 of a second. So it could go either way, and one mistake from either of the drivers could end their chances of a win. But yes, they are within 1 second, as my cameraman tells me. But yes, 0.67 of a second. It's nothing at this rate, and anything can happen. And something I wanted to mention that we were discussing before the broadcast started, and it was very interesting, that this track seemingly has more names for its bridges, which, to be honest, for this race have all been changed and renamed to, well, could be renamed to our league sponsors, but they are indeed, there are more names for the bridges than for the actual corners. I think when we were checking, there may have been about 5 or 6 corner names if you really stretched it. And then there were somewhere in around 7 or 8 bridge names, so at that rate, we really just have more bridges on the circuit when it comes to the naming, different naming rather than just numbers, than we have corners, which is very, very funny. But yes, we do have a battle for P7 actually, and Thomas Sins and David Junt. I don't think Thomas Sins exactly wanted that kind of a battle. He was doing so well, but now Daniel Benefield is just lapping so much quicker. What is wrong with Thomas Sins' car? I'm not entirely sure, but that seems so much off. He had so much worse pit stop, he just can't quite get it going. And now David Junt is all over the back of Thomas Sins, or not yet, but 1 second behind is literally nothing compared to what it was earlier on. So David Junt having a fantastic race. But with that said, I think Thomas found a little bit more pace. I think this is going to be a bit of a bigger gap. Yes, 1.5 seconds. And I'm seeing now that we have Wopke Hostra going a little bit quicker than Roy Schroten. Half a second actually, last lap. So Wopke Hostra just able to pull off a little bit better once the tires get up to temperature, but it still is nothing. If you make a mistake at 1 second of a gap, that literally translates to a loss of position automatically. It's just so very close. As they're about to lap the 17th place man, Sharon van der Sloot, and Wopke will very much hope that Sharon will not hold him up too much. It's just not to allow Roy to catch up too much again. And Van der Sloot does indeed let them both go in a very lovely manner. Very good traffic management from Sherwin. So we're 60% complete, and I think we've gone through the basic pit stop. Oh, do we have a P11 battle between Alexander Van Woude, Gerrit de Vries, and Edgar Ruiz? What a surprise! Gerrit de Vries will be attempting a move on the outside of the coming onto the very, very slow left-hand hairpin. And I think he's may just about have Alexander Van der Woude, and he indeed does, although Van der Woude just keeps it on the inside. And now, because of that, Edgar Ruiz just had a better run and attempts an overtake on the inside of the next corner, up the hill, and he indeed does hold it. So Alexander Van der Woude, 2 corners, 2 places lost. Very unlucky. But I think that car does indeed must have had some damage sustained when he had a little bit of a crash earlier on. But now Roy Schroten is actually catching up to Wopke Hostra again, by the way. It's only 0.8 of a second. So it could be that... And he has made the quickest first sector of anyone throughout this race. So Roy Schroten right behind Schingberg, who spins out in front of him, which will definitely slightly unsettle Wopke. It never is a good thing to see a car spinning in front of you. You're never quite sure if it's going to be driving into you or not. But middle sector, we have Roy Schroten go quicker again, and I think Roy Schroten is on a mission now and attempting possibly a move on Wopke Hostra. Whenever he can just slightly close up a bit more. If he can keep behind him, and if he can close down a little more, he could possibly challenge that race lead. Roy Schroten driving a fantastic race so far. And yes, he does have a really good exit out of the last corner. He's not quite there yet with Wopke, but he would never. It would be mad if he was. But he's only half a second behind Wopke, and he actually does the quickest lap of the race of anyone. So Roy Schroten on a mission. He's absolutely on it. He only had the quickest first sector of anyone, and he hasn't even improved his middle or last sectors. As he makes a bit of a mistake for the first sector this time around, he loses, I think, pretty much all that he gained this last lap. That's very unlucky for a Drake driver. As we have Sharon van der Sloot and Schingberg pitting in. So those two drivers haven't pitted in yet, really, up until that point. Or if they have, it would have been for this would be their second stop. As Shane Burke, oh, his pit stop is where Sharon pit stops is. And because they had damage, I think. Sharon just not quite able... Oh, they both have damage. Oh no. Sorry, Sharon, I'm not sure how much damage he has, but Shane has quite a bit. Oh yeah, they both definitely had damage. Wow, wow, wow. Both Dark Tape Racing definitely having a bad day. And now, yes, Roy Schroten has indeed lost nearly a second in the first sector this time by. And that's very unlucky for Roy after such a great drive over the last lap. And what I'm seeing now is a bit of an overcast, although that's now gone away. Never mind. Oh dear. The weather is very, very bipolar at the moment, but thankfully it's not raining yet. And hopefully, well, drivers will be hoping for no rain. But I would say it would be very hilarious to see a bit of rain for the last couple of laps and see what happens with the drivers. It would be a bit of a lottery, but we have seen it already in a couple of races this season, and I mean, the drivers should probably have enough driving in the weather already, although not on this track, of course. And Wopke Hostra actually, last lap, he did have a really good first sector, the quickest of his own thus far this race. Although not as quick as Roy's last time around. And this time around they matched their first sectors down to 0.005 of a second. So it's very, very close. And their paces are very evenly matched. So I really wonder if Roy can still catch up. But after that one mistake, and one mistake lost him a second. Imagine if Wopke made that mistake. That would be instantly over. But that's a battle for P12 again. Alexander van der Woude under pressure from Andrea Magoso once again. And at this rate, I don't think really van der Woude has much of a battling chance. But he will be trying, he will be attempting to possibly stay in front, but he makes a mistake and that's going to be over. That's going to be over before it even begins. So that's Magoso in front, and now it's not even worth looking at it anymore because, well, yeah, that's Magoso in front. Simple as. And I don't think Alexander has much pace in him at this moment. Or in him or in his car. Both of them possibly. Very unlucky, but that's van der Woude back into 13th place. Magoso making a bit of a mistake, but not quite enough. And with that said, we are now back to having no battles at all on the track. Well, not no battles, because we still have David Tune. Never mind, we have David Tune attacking Thomas Hins on the exit of last corner. And we have David Tune going up to 7th place, but now Hins takes a bit of the draft, and he's going to be attempting to make a cutback before this start-finish line even ends. Sorry, this is just wow. Thomas Hins somehow, after being overtaken out of the last corner, still maintains 7th place from David Tune. How can a man do that? I have no idea. But these cars do have a lot of aero draft. And also, I didn't even see. Oh yes, Mateusz Bogusz has just retired, I think. Oh dear, is that a straight disconnect? Can I see it? No, I can't. Lovely. Oh, what would I give for P10 still? That battle for Thomas Hins and David Tune for that 7th place. But what would I give for the replays to be a bit more useful in terms of recording what everyone does? And luckily our factory has that bit of a bug where, or not bug, but a bit of a problem where it doesn't really record how everyone does throughout the race. And it's a little bit annoying for us commentators whenever we need to do a bit of a replay. But now David Tune made a bit of a mistake and he lost quite a bit of ground to Thomas Hins, to be honest. So that will be Thomas Hins feeling a little less of pressure unless he makes another mistake coming out of that final corner, which he has last time around. And no, he hasn't made one this time. He just keeps it honest. And we have Shane Burke in pits once again with damage, front end damage. So So that's Shane Burke having a horrid race, to say the very least. I mean, there is really not much more you could say about it. That would be, yeah, that would be true. It's just, yeah, Shane Burke having a bad race. That's all it is. As we have Reef in trouble now, under pressure from Magoso and from Alexander Van der Velde, who, all credit to Van der Velde, he's keeping Andrea Magoso on a still, and he's keeping behind less than a second. So he is still keeping that car quite quick. It's just that he is lacking a bit of pace in general. But he behind someone, he can keep it up. Excuse me there. And yes, Shane Burke out onto the track once again. With that said, yeah, I think Magoso is going to possibly hit him. Whoa, that's a car that was in the middle of a road that was stopped. Whoa. Oh, wow, that's Edgar Reef crashing into Wicks. Oh, that's Wicks. That was in front of leaders as well. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Can Wopke make it through safely? Wopke had to slow down quite a bit, but also, or maybe not. No. Everyone had to just make it safely through. Wow. Somebody had a bit of a problem. It looked like I need to really see what happened there, but that was very, very odd. I think that is indeed De Vries lagging out. Yes, that was De Vries lagging out. Straight into Edgar Reef, who had through no fault of his own, caused this massive pileup. And he couldn't have done anything. He was mid-air when he hit Wicks, who then made Wopke Hoekstra go onto the grass. And I mean, there couldn't have been much that he could have done. And then Schoten had to brake and not to hit Reef, and that's why he lost quite a bit of space as well. But to be fair, I think that was very, very good driving from the from leaders, taking it safe through there. But with that said, we're back now into the race, and Wicks has to make it safely for the front or rear wing again for no fault of his own. That Carnell car just not quite lucky this race. So Mark Wicks just making his way slowly through the lap. Wow, that was quite unlucky, and interesting enough, out of all of that, Gerrit De Vries comes out unscathed. That, if there's absolutely no words to describe how unlucky drivers behind him were and how lucky he was. That is just crazy. And that, the interesting bit is, I was actually talking about how our factor does have some of its issues that it still needs sorting out, and I think we just seen one of them. That was massive. Yes, as Ben Willis does tell me, it's my curse once again, and yes, it is. It seems like I've been cursing things a lot over the last two rounds of Atlantic series, which, to be honest though, Atlantic series I have been enjoying a whole lot this race. Oh, that looked like a Benefield lag out, but thankfully he's back on track. Actually, interestingly enough, Benefield is actually closing down on Metaclots. Benefield is actually going to be challenging for 5th place over the last couple laps. And yes, this is actually already only 3.5 laps to go or so. Actually, less by now. So, Wopke Hoekstra about to start his second to last lap. That's very interesting. As we have Henze, who lost the place. Oh, he's retired! So how's Benefield? Oh no. Let me guess, this is one of those famous Australian incidents, internet incidents. That's disturbingly bad for. Oh, Benefield had such a good battle brewing up for P5, and David Jones just did. Oh, all of that was for nothing. He was being held up by Hinz in that beautiful battle, and all of that for nothing. That's very, very sad for me to see so close to the finish of the race, especially that was no fault of the drivers. And we have a battle for P3 between Borja Milan and Dino Paolini. Dino Paolini does catch up to Borja by the very end. Oh, this is going to be fascinating. Dino has had some issues earlier on with overtaking, but now that he has some pace. I wonder if he can overtake Borja. This will be very, very interesting as David Tunes pits in. Oh no. He was doing he was so high up. But he will still finish in the top 10 in this case. So David Tunes having a great race anyway, even if he had to pit in for the second time. But it's very unlucky with just 2 laps to go as Schroten keeps on pushing, and he's actually closing down quite a bit on Wopke, but I don't think it's quite enough at this stage of the race, unless Wopke makes a massive mistake where Roy is going to finish second. But that's Junt out of the pits, and he's going to still be in 6th place, so he doesn't even lose his spot, so he may have just decided, I may as well not take it safe and just pit in for a bit of splash and dash. As we have Roy Schroten actually closing down to the point where it's only 1.3 seconds, but they are about to start their final lap, and Les Wopke Hostra is literally saving the car to the point where he can't go any quicker. I don't think there's any way that Roy Schroten can take it away from him. Yes, no. At this point, I don't think so. 1.3 seconds. But I have said this before in the Super League race last time around, and, well, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you, but let's say it hasn't ended the way I really predicted it. With that said, Dino Paolini is still on the back end of Borja Milan, and Thomasins does rejoin the race in 13th place, so he's going to be attempting to finish for the final bit of points. And you do get points for finishing, and by luckily Daniel Benefield, I'm not seeing rejoining as of yet. And with that said, Roy Schroten is, he's a bit too far at this point, and the only real opportunities have gone by now, unless Hostra is being held up by the traffic too much. He has it, I think. He can clearly win this. Oh, Schroten makes a bit of a mistake. That's not helping him either. Yeah, the car is not quite on point anymore. But with that said, I think it's pretty much set everywhere, to be honest. The only place that can change would be P1 and P3, really. And those both, I think, are pretty set by now. Yes, Wopke Hostra just behind Magoso, and I think Magoso is going to let him by. No, he's not going to be letting him by. So I think that, Roy Schroten already knows it, and he's given it up. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we do have Wopke Hostra, who's about to cross the finish line for the final time here at Road America. And he does win by less than a second from Roy Schroten. That is an amazing drive for Wopke. Great drive from Roy Schroten. And Borja Milan rounds out the podium with Dino Paolini just not quite able to get that 3rd place after that absolutely terrible start of his. Just not able to get away. But he was able to recapture quite a few places, actually. In fact, with Metacloud coming in 5th, we have a couple more finishers further back, with Alexander Van der Bode and Sharon Vasily already in on their places. And we don't have any more battles, really. So I think it's pretty much set. Thomasins is going to finish in 12th place, I think, with Mark Wicks in 5th, who's going to be our last place finisher. Down in 15th place. And to be fair, that was quite a quick race, actually 42 minutes. Not too bad for an Atlantic Series. But I don't think Thomasins will be very happy afterwards. We're still waiting for some drivers to finish their laps. It is a very long lap, as we have mentioned. Minute and 30 something seconds. Nearly minute and 40 seconds. Interesting enough, I think David Junt went for a complete crazy run by the end, because he got the quickest lap of the race, of anyone, fastest lap of the race, maybe it would be the more appropriate term. So David Junt with the fastest lap of the race, down in 6th place, and I think he'll be more than ecstatic about finishing in 6th place. As we have our final of the finishers crossing the line, Wopke Hostra, our race winner, with 2nd place of Roy Schroten, 3rd place of Borja Milan, 4th of Dino Paolini, just outside of the podium after the tower starts, start. 5th of Menoclant, 6th for Davijund. He'll be super happy after starting from, I think, 22nd place, which is an amazing run. 7th place for Lazarus Philippakos, 8th for Gerrit de Vries, 9th for Andrea Magoso, 10th for Alexander van der Woude, with 11th for Sharon Landersloot, 12th and very unlucky for Thomas Hins, 13th for Shane Burke, 14th for Andrei Borotovsky, 15th for Mark Wicks, and that's all of our finishers. One driver which I'm not sure if he's going to get classified, possibly. Daniel Benefield in 16th place. 17th for Edgar Reef. 28, or actually he's not classified, I don't think, at this point. Yes, it's pretty sure he is not. So Edgar, our non-finishers would be Edgar Reef, Mateusz Bogusz, Jordan Weeks, Niranir Kumar, Christoph Lichtenstein, Miles Dixon, Michelle Alessandro, Reese Gardner, and Nicholas Hillebrand. And I think at this point, since we are completely done with all of the really drivey stuff, I think we can bring back Ben Willis to talk about what he thought of the race.
You can indeed. Well, firstly, massive congratulations to Mr. Wupke Hotstra, because that was an amazing drive. Absolutely amazing. He dominated that. He was able to control the pace. Lights to flag. And as much as Roy was driving, as quick as he couldn't just keep up with him. So, amazing drive from Wupke, and absolutely brilliant result for him.
I think, honestly, it was a fantastic drive from Wupke, but Roy, if not for that mistake, I think he would have challenged for the win. Honestly, just that one mistake coming out of turn 2. Or, actually, I think that's called the turn 3, because they call a straight a turn.
yeah, Road America and their corner numbers aren't the best, but no, Roy was definitely, he had the fastest lap towards the end of his first stint. He was doing absolutely brilliantly, but as I say, I think that mistake just slightly cost him on the run up to try and overtake Hoekstra there. But still, great drive from Roy as well, and obviously Borja Milan in P3 as well. Brilliant result.
Yes, I think Borja did quite well indeed to finish on podium. Very well done. And again, I'd like to really stress that insane drive from Davijund, who was very
underprepared, wasn't he?
Yes, there we go. That's the word. But to be honest, to start from 22nd and to finish 6th is quite an achievement.
Definitely, yeah. I think. Well, we spoke to him before. He was a bit sleepy. I think he just woken up. Wasn't the most prepared for a big race, but no, really good drive there to P6. He definitely looked quite in control of the car, which is good for someone who wasn't that awake.
Yes, and now that I was able to get a bit of sip of water, because my throat was killing me after this race, I have not had any kind of a drink throughout the race, which is 40 minutes of talking without any drink is a bit, yeah, let's say not a nice feeling. But yeah, I think it's time for us to bring in some of the drivers, and I think we'll have 4 of them waiting, so I shall bring them in now. And I think we're about to begin our interviews with, well, let's begin with the race winner, Wupke Hoekstra. How was that for you?
I guess it's kind of a different win than the first one I had this season. Yeah, basically start to finish. So, but I had Roy, who was quite close behind me. So he was pushing quite hard, I guess. But he did a good job. I was actually scared that he would suddenly come at me and overtake me in the final lap, as happened last time with Borja, of course.
Yes, and that was very well done. And yeah, there was quite a bit of a fighting going on, and I think it ended up being that Roy just made a bit of a mistake coming out of turn 3, as it's called. But I will let him explain exactly what happened. But yeah, well done again on the win. It was a very good drive, and again, one of your fantastic starts, which probably means you didn't even have to be in front to really come out on front in the first turn.
Yeah, true. The start was amazing. I think I had a 1 second gap before the first corner, so I could just take it easy from then on. But for some reason, my pit stop was slower than Roy's pit stop. So after the pit stop, he was suddenly much closer to me. So he was really putting the pressure on. But yeah, I saw him make a mistake as well. He dropped like 2 seconds. So after that, I didn't push too hard because I was kind of scared that the car would just spin out of nowhere. Yeah, it was a pretty good win, and I'm still in the fight for the championship, so I'm happy.
Yes, one more race to go, and good luck with that. And with that, that is our race winner. And now let's go to our runner-up, Roy Schroden.
Wake up.
What an insane race! That one mistake, I think, lost you 1 second in the first sector,
wake
somewhere
up.
in the middle of the final stint. And honestly, I think that lost us a really good battle.
Oh man, it's very nice to be up here again on the podium. It's been a long time for me lately. In the last few laps, I overheated my tires a little bit, trying to catch up with Wopke, so that I couldn't do the pace anymore. The whole race, I tried to catch up with Wopke and just try to stay with him, try to stay close to him in order. If he made a mistake, then I could profit, but he didn't. He had an amazing drive. Thanks to my drag crew in the pit, I had an amazing pit stop, but in the end it didn't earn me the win. But it was a nice battle for sure.
Yeah, it was a good drive, and well done on second place. It was very close, and yes, indeed, one mistake from either one of you would lose you a win, and I think it ended up being you this time around, unluckily. But yeah, well done, and I think Ben Willis was sitting at the edge of his seat while watching you and hoping for your good finish. With that said, that's Roy Schoten, and now to a less fortunate driver, Daniel Benefield. It seems like the Australian internet has not been kind to you.
No, it's a bit annoying, to be honest.
But to be honest,
Quite
that
a bit.
was quite a good drive up to that point.
Yeah, I did it all in about the first 400 meters of the race, to be honest. I mean, I got a stupidly good start, and everyone decided to leave an IndyCar-sized gap everywhere, so I just went through everyone and started 13th and
User
ended
was
up
moved to your channel.
at turn 1 and 5th, which I was pretty happy with. But yeah, and then I
channel was
might have had a
edited.
shot at Menno at the end, but I can't be sure. But it would have been interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it would have been, and again, well done. That was a good drive up until that point. And I think in the end you're still gonna get classified. So if I did the maths correctly, possibly. I'm not actually. I'm not entirely sure because I think it was 2 or 3 laps that you were losing, and it's 90%. We'll see anyway. Hopefully. But at this point, I'm not sure. Menno Klont, though, is going to be our next interviewee. Well, that was a race and a half.
Yeah, it was a very good race. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, actually. So yeah, P5. It was at least the start was pretty good, and I think the first stint was quite good. But after it, I had the feeling that I couldn't just follow the rest, and I think that had more to do with with the others having more more pace and more they want to put it more on the line. And yeah, I noticed the last, I think 5 laps of after the stop, so I noticed that I think I was a bit too conservative and too easy. So I'm really happy with P5 and with the P4 as starting, but yeah, I always want to move forward. So yeah, I can build on this, and I really think I did a good race today. The others were amazingly quick today, so they were really good. So yeah.
Yeah, well done, and yeah, that place is definitely a lovely thing to see. And one more race for you to hopefully get a podium, maybe. Who knows? Of course, there are only 3 spots more left until, of course, next race. Well, with that said, our final interviewee, and probably one of the unlucky duo with the Australian internet who disconnected at the same time. Thomas Hinz, what a great race up until, well, that point.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was good fun. I had a good battle with old Jan. It was good to have a battle with him again. It's been a while since we've battled, but it was very good fun. There for seventh. Yeah, I just couldn't catch up to the top six. Even Daniel there you guys were all just ridiculously fast, and I just couldn't catch up. I probably could have pushed a little bit harder. I think I was sort of being a little bit safe, but I prefer to not crash and just get through. So yeah, it was going well, and yeah, then just disconnect again. I don't know what it is, but these disconnection things have been happening for good few weeks or good month or two now, and I've tried everything under the sun to fix it, and I just cannot fix it. So don't know. Pretty much, I've only got one more resort left that I can think of to try, and if that still doesn't work, then I'm out of ideas, and I'm probably just going to have to deal with it for the moment. But that was good fun. I had a good fun time. Still managed to get back in and get 12th anyway, so at the very least, I got something out of it. So not a complete disaster, and it was a good time. So yeah, always enjoy these. Looking forward to the final round. And yeah, good stuff. And yeah, bad luck, of course, to Daniel for the Aussie disconnect thing, whatever it was. So yeah, unfortunate, but we'll move on to the next round.
Yes, and of course, that is very unlucky, and hopefully you can get it fixed. But at this rate, it just looks like it's just Australia having a bit of a fit, unluckily. And with that said, that'll be all of our interviewees, and I think we should move on to our final thoughts. Ben, anything you have to say?
I think it's again another great race. Definitely kept me entertained whilst doing the cameras, which is always good. And yeah, we've got one more race to go. We're in Circuit of the Americas in Texas, which is definitely a different kind of track. It's a sort of different per sector, really. First sector is really flowing and really high downforce, and the second sector is just a massive straight. Final sector is really tight and technical, so setup there is going to be absolutely key. And of course, we could see the Drivers' Championship being settled there as well. Obviously, Wupper taking the win today, he's gained some vital points on Borja Milan, so he may sneak back towards the lead, and we'll have a nice little battle to finish it off.
Yeah, it should be very, very good indeed. And the next round is indeed Coda. So I'm not sure. I raced that track last week, of course, in the ladder, and it can be interesting. To be fair, in these cars, I think it'll be very interesting to see if they can handle going behind on those long straights. We'll see. It should be very interesting next time around, and of course, it'll be the end of the season. And honestly, the race was fantastic in many regards, but then there were some unlucky downsides. Start of the race was a bit messy. We had a bit of that lag spike issue with the race, and yeah, unlucky, but a lot of the good fighting in the race as well. So with that said, I think we can just quickly go over what's happening next week. So we have next week, tune in for the Mexican Grand Prix. We have the entire career ladder as per usual, with Formula Challenge on the Tuesday, with the Super Cup on the Wednesday, and the Super League on that Thursday, and they all should be absolutely fantastic. And apparently we also want Thomas Hinz to chime in, and of course you can.
Yeah, no, I was just going to help you out with that. Yeah, and as you said, next week, career ladder, obviously Mexico, first time we're racing at that circuit in R-Factor 2. Should be a fascinating week of racing, that's for sure. Obviously, a very long main straight there. Going to be plenty of slipstreaming, all sorts of shenanigans, I'm sure. Should be a lot of fun, though. Certainly will be something different, I think, for the drivers, and be a test who can adjust to this new track quickly. And yeah, we'll see how we go. But yeah, no, just thought I'd put my bit in there. So yeah, be sure to watch out. We should have the broadcast going next week for these. So yeah, sure, it will be good to bring on the next round of career ladder and round out the season nearly, because I think we've got after that 2 rounds to go, and he's all done and dusted. So yeah, should be a good way to end the season.
No, yeah, I think you're very right. It should be very interesting, and that track does provide, I think, some quite good racing in real life, so I really hope for quite good racing here as well. And of course, if you want to join GPVWC and you're not driving for a team yet, you are welcome to also go get here on a Tuesday into an open series. Just make sure you're registered on here, and yeah, give it a go, and maybe you'll be picked up by some team. Who knows? Maybe you're the next star. With that said, that will be for our plan for next week, and I shall see you sometime in the future. So I was Kacper Kolodziejczyk, and on cameras we had Ben Willis, and I wish you all a good night.